A new documentary episode from CBS Reports examines this country's racial reckoning through the eyes of children.
The latest episode, Racism, is part of a broader series on young people called Are the Kids All Right? It reveals firsthand perspectives on race from kids and teens across America. Let's take a preview.
You ready?
My definition of racism, that's deep.
There's some weird stuff that goes on at the school. People saying the N-word to people, it's just not good.
In the streets, they would just say like rude things like ching chong.
Riding in the car, driving my car, I think it's affecting me just because I am black.
I think that it's passed down from generations and just being taught on and on.
In the moment you let people make fun of you because of what makes you different, that respect is gone.
I feel like it's just a war zone between all different races. It's not about race or color or anything like that. If we can just show them that we're all human, these obstacles won't be there anymore.
Yesenia Hernandez is one of the teens who took part in that documentary, and she is joining us now to talk about it. Yesenia, thank you so much for being with us. This is a difficult question, but I want you to talk to us a little bit about the first time you encountered racism and specifically what you thought, what was going through your mind during that encounter.
I think I was about in 4th grade, I would say, when I first not encountered it, but saw it firsthand. And I remember it was actually a classmate of mine. She was being bullied for being Hispanic. And I remember hearing, her getting teased, but our classroom was a very playful environment, It was a typical 4th grade class, very friendly, very playful. So I thought, they were just teasing with each other. But it wasn't until I heard the change in their tone that I realized that they were being serious. And, the jokes and the teasing progressively just got really aggressive and essentially racist. And I remember just having to take a step back and just trying to process what I saw, because in my mind, I literally could not understand why she was being put down. And, these girls were just being mean to her because she was Hispanic.
Mm-hmm. And I would think if I was in your position, I'd also have to say, but is Hispanic a bad thing? Why is that considered an insult? Why isn't it just a thing, But clearly they're considering it an insult. Mm-hmm. You said something really interesting in the documentary, and we saw that in the little small clip. You said that you feel like, there's a war zone going on between all the different races right now. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so what I meant by that is this whole situation just really made us have knives at each other's throats when it comes to this. And we're just all so defensive of what's going on right now that we don't realize that while we're being so protective and defensive of our race and specifically, some of us are initially growing biased within ourselves because of it. We just need to all stop trying to make it a competition in between, whose race is being attacked more and who's, getting more hate. We just need to, try to stand together and be more patient with each other, because everybody's struggling with this right now.
America, as you know, is in the midst of this national conversation about racism and racial injustices. What do you think adult or older generations typically or occasionally get wrong in that conversation?
This is a hard question to answer because I'm 15 years old. I was raised in a completely different generation and environment than, say, my grandparents were. But I think the best answer that I could give is, the older generation tends to be a little more stubborn and, they just find it a little harder to understand that, racism, it doesn't make sense at all, and if they just took the time a little more to hear us out when we say, it doesn't make sense. And if they just took the time more, I think that would help. So I really think it's just them not even wanting to have the conversation. They're just a little more closed-minded than I would say everybody else was.
Vlad and I were talking, I think, the other day. Both Vlad and I come from immigrant families, multiracial backgrounds, and we were talking about what it was like when we were growing up. And one of the things was, it may seem silly, but kids listen to different music. The white kids in my class did not listen to the same music that I listened to. And so there was somehow like a cultural divide. There were several things that we had in common, but there was also a cultural divide that I thought, like with your generation, that doesn't exist anymore, really. Like everyone kind of listens to the same music. You kind of like, it seemed like you guys do the same things. So I'm surprised to hear that you still feel this divisiveness between groups amongst younger people.
Yeah, and it definitely is still there. You do still feel it. And even though, we get along at school just fine, you do still feel that dividance between each other. They're a group of, these are where the white kids hang out. These are where the Hispanic kids hang out. Like it's just that dividance is still there.
And on that subject, I mean, I think it's interesting too. We were talking about the fact that parents who came from other countries to this country who are not white had a very different view. You're talking about the fact that they don't understand what young people are sort of saying today. Our parents' generation and the generation before them had these blinders on. They said, well, you got to like tune that out and just do whatever it is that's required to be successful. And, we are talking about Ethel Payne. This is sort of a tangent, but follow me with this. Ethel Payne is one of the first African-American women who was a White House correspondent, right? And we always talk about how if you see it, you can be it.
Yeah.
But when you are the only one or you're the first one, how do you see it if you've never had that representation before? You put those blinders on and you just get at it. Does that message, does that still translate or does that still work for young people today or no?
I feel like it does, yeah. Like, I feel like we're a lot more, aware of things. So I think it does, honestly, for us.
You were talking about the first time that you experienced racism, and it was sort of very overt, right? It's about name calling and bullying. But increasingly, when we talk about racism in this country, we're not talking about somebody screaming the N-word. We're talking about institutionalized racism, racism that's part of the fabric that affects you in your school. It may affect your future job. I wonder if that's also something that you're tuned into at such a young age.
I think we are. We see a lot of it. And, when I was dealing with it for the first time in 4th grade, it was a lot. I had to take a step back. I just had to kind of process why this was happening. And as I grew up, I started seeing more of it. So, I kind of just learned how to deal with the feeling. But yeah, I would say it would.
So what do you think your generation can do to help change this?
Our generation is very outspoken, I would say. I think social media, all these different platforms, they really help us bring awareness to this. They show firsthand, what we see out on the street, what the things that actually happen in the world and why it's such a big problem. So I think our, generation can just really help keep spreading that message and keep spreading the awareness and making people know that this is a problem. And if we can't learn to stand together on this, we're never going to get anywhere. But I really do feel like our generation can help with this. We're very outspoken, we're very aware, and we're very strong at such a young age. So I honestly think we can bring awareness to this and we can help minimize this.
I think so too. Things are changing. They just take a long time to change, but they're changing.
But they are changing.
Yesenia Hernandez, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
So you can stream Are the Kids All Right? Racism live right here this Sunday night at 8 Eastern. It's also available on demand on the CBS News app.